There's a nationwide parasite outbreak causing explosive diarrhea. A woman in Denver, Reba, is on day 5 of it, and she's going to the bathroom 40 times a day. She said, "I wouldn't wish this on my worst enemy." She's one of thousands of Americans hit by a parasite that most people had never ever heard about until a week ago. It's called the Cyclospora cadenensis, and I had to learn how to pronounce that. I'm going to explain in detail what's going on with this outbreak, why everyone we know is at risk, and why the government officials are totally behind the curve here. I'm going to talk about what's actually causing it, and most importantly, how to keep your loved ones safe. I think until we can figure this out, the safest thing you can do is to cook all your food. That's what I'm telling my own friends and family, not to eat raw vegetables for the next week or 2 at least. Our last video on this reached millions of you out there because you shared it. Thank you. So I spent a few days reading all of your questions and digging deeper, and I think the story just changed dramatically. 6 things I found out that I'm not hearing anywhere in the news, and one of them even has a dangerous trap in it that could hurt the people that you're trying to protect. So in the next few minutes, I'm going to walk you through what I learned that actually matters to you, why the official case numbers are totally wrong, and what that tells us about whether anyone here is really in control of this and what's going on, what you can do to protect yourself, what's actually safety, how to prepare it, and what isn't. I think washing lettuce and vegetables just does not work. Freezing doesn't work either, but there are a few simple steps I can share that can work to kill the parasite and keep you safe. Then I'm going to discuss a disgusting and stomach-turning word I'd never heard of before. Humanure, the combination of the words human and manure, and why it might explain how a parasite that only comes from human poop could end up on your salad. I'll discuss the water theory and why one of the country's top food scientists thinks this parasite might be in the water. I'm going to talk about why our government is behind the curve here, and the question that hundreds of you asked me: why is a parasite being treated with an antibiotic? And are the parasite pills trending online actually the answer? The last one has a dangerous trap in it, and I need you to hear it. I also cover the things you can do to protect you and your loved ones, and talk about the homegrown food movement that's now rapidly spreading across our country. If any of that could help someone you love, please do 2 things for me right now. Subscribe, because this is changing rapidly by the hour, and I think the traditional media is missing what matters for your safety. And share this with a friend who shops and cooks for their family. In an outbreak like this, that one person being well-informed can protect everyone around them. I'm Dr. Thomas, a Johns Hopkins and NIH-funded caregiving researcher, the CEO of CareIAA, and a caregiver myself. I've dedicated my career to protecting older adults and those with serious illness who are most at risk from this outbreak, and I hope that this video helps keep our loved ones safe. So let's get into it. First, I think the CDC numbers are completely off base here. Their national report listed only 1,645 confirmed cases for the entire country, but Michigan alone has over 3,300 cases. Let me say that again. One state is reporting twice what the CDC is reporting for the entire country. Why is that? The CDC is only counting cases that are lab confirmed, and that's lagging by 6 weeks behind what's really happening on the ground. The states are reporting what they're seeing on the ground right now. So I think many of you said it in the comments on the last video. The people who are supposed to be on top of this are totally behind the curve. So we need to keep this in mind. The outbreak is much, much bigger than people think. Also, some people noticed the timing. All of this started just as America hosted the World Cup. Enormous numbers of international travelers flowing into the U.S. from all over the world. So people are asking me, could that be feeding this? I think it's an interesting question, but I can't find conclusive evidence either way. Why? Because this Cyclospora parasite doesn't spread person to person the way that catching a cold does. You can't catch it from the traveler standing next to you, but it does spread from human feces over a matter of a few weeks. and I'm going to talk about that. A quick detour here because I want to share practical advice, not just what's causing it. If you take away one practical thing from this whole video, make it this: 3 simple rules. 1. Try to avoid uncooked vegetables. Washing or freezing does not reliably kill the parasite. 2. Cook everything at least for the next week or two until we can get more information on the source. Over 158 degrees is the only thing that reliably kills this parasite. 3. If you get diarrhea and it doesn't stop after a couple days, say one word to your doctor, Cyclospora, and ask them to test for it by name. The standard stool test will not detect it. So now, where is this parasite coming from? That question leads me to research that I can't stop thinking about. And by the way, this is totally disgusting, but I think you need to know it because it'll change how you look at the salad aisle forever. There's a new word I learned this week: humanure. Human plus manure. Human waste that ends up on crops. This parasite, Cyclospora cayetanensis, is what scientists call host-specific to humans. Translation is, it lives and reproduces in people. So when this thing shows up on your lettuce, there's only one possible origin. Human feces got into that food journey somewhere. It's not whether human waste was involved, but the only question is, how and where did the human waste get into your food? And this is where it gets really uncomfortable and gross. The most credible, best documented explanation here is a labor and sanitation failure that food safety researchers have been warning about us for years. When farm workers are out there picking low-growing crops, romaine lettuce, cilantro, strawberries, and they're not given decent access to portable toilets or hand-washing stations, contamination can happen right there in the field. There's a farming YouTuber, Farm to Tabor, that several of you pointed me to, who's documented exactly how this systematic denial of basic sanitation to field workers turns into a public health time bomb. And I think, unfortunately, as our food supply has become a big international business, stuff grown cheaply and far away, and sometimes poor countries then shipped here and mixed together, the people picking it often got treated as an afterthought, and a parasite like this just needs one lapse in the entire supply chain to spread. Now there's also a darker version of this theory circulating online: the claim that big food producers facing high fertilizer prices are deliberately using untreated human sewage, what people call night soil, as cheap fertilizer to cut their cost. I think on the most regulated farms that export to American grocery stores. That specific practice is not documented, but I treat this theory about secret sewage fertilizer as just speculation. But I think people's instinct may be correct here, that cost-cutting in a giant international food system run by these massive companies can create hidden risk. So where does the contamination actually enter? Investigators keep coming back to a short list of choke points: the field itself, the irrigation, the canal water, worker sanitation, the harvest bins, the wash tanks at the packing house, and the big one: the moment that produce from dozens of farms gets commingled into one big processing facility. That last step is how a single contaminated source somewhere ends up in bags shipped to 30 different states. When the real breakthrough in this investigation lands, I'll put my money on landing somewhere in that chain. So your biggest practical takeaway here is washing will not reliably remove this, and neither does a chlorine rinse that's used on pre-washed bad greens. Cyclospora shrugs off chlorine. The only thing that kills it every time is heat. So cook your leafy greens and herbs to about 158 degrees, and the parasite is destroyed. Period. Try it to eat only cooked foods for the next week or two until we can get more information and get to the bottom of this. And really quickly, if someone in your family does the shopping or cooking, pause in for this term right now, not later. I think this is exactly the kind of advice where one person, knowing it, can protect their whole house. So let me get into another thing that's going on, a real fight breaking out between serious food scientists. Dr. Donald Schaffner chairs food science at Rutgers, and he noticed something on the map. These cases aren't scattered like a national lettuce shipment center would scatter them. They're clustered really hard, starting in Michigan and Ohio in the counties surrounding Lake Erie. His open suggestion is maybe this isn't foodborne at all, but what if it's waterborne? People exposed through a shared water source like the lake itself, but before you panic about your tap, I have to clear up what that means. The word waterborne here is being used sometimes to mean three completely different things, and mixing them up could make you panic and could make you crazy. So pathway 1 is recreational. Someone swims in a contaminated lake, swallows water, gets sick. Pathway 2 is drinking water. A contaminated water system reaches homes or restaurants. Pathway 3, and this is the sneaky one, agricultural water. Contaminated water is then used to irrigate or wash the produce, and then you get sick from eating that food. All three of those involve water, but look what Pathway 3 does. It kind of collapses this debate of is it the lattice or is it the water, because that means it can be both. The water might have gotten the parasite onto the lattice. So what if the two leading theories in this outbreak might not be rival theories out, after all? They might be the same story from two different ends. Now, this Lake Erie idea is not proven, by the way. Michigan officials push back hard, saying there's no evidence yet linking lake water to this outbreak, and no water sample has tested positive. What we do know is that the region had recent heavy rain and flooding overwhelmed sewers and septic systems, pushing human waste into the waterways. A former FDA official said the role of water in spreading this parasite is probably underestimated. So this is a live, credible hypothesis, yet, but not a conclusion. Your practical takeaway here still costs you nothing to be careful. This summer, especially if you live in affected regions, don't swallow lake or pond water. Don't even think that swimming pool chlorine will reliably kill this either. If you're caring for someone that's immunocompromised, living in one of these areas, maybe lean on bottled or distilled water for a while, might just give you peace of mind. Now remember when I said that the numbers prove the officials were behind the curve. Here's why I think the government could be missing this. Remember DOGE, D-O-G-E. That was the program that Elon Musk was doing to slash government spending in 2025. Well, last year the federal surveillance network called FoodNet, which had tracked dangerous foodborne pathogens for nearly 3 decades, suddenly changed what the states were required to report. This was part of one of these cost cuts. Cyclists were at tracking became optional. This happened as part of this broader push to cut government spending, what Dodge called the efficiency drive, alongside significant reductions to public health funding and staffing. I'm personally going to handle this the way I always try to give you both sides no partisan spin, because I think this hits people across the political spectrum. On the one side, several credible scientists are now saying these DDG cuts left our country slower and blinder. A food safety expert at George Washington University recently said she believes the funding cuts have affected the response. Dr. Schaffner himself asked it plainly. Could we have caught this earlier? Could we know more if we were still tracking all this properly? I think when you cut what looks like redundant infrastructure to save money, you often may not feel the loss until an emergency hits. And then by then, you're flying blind. Now on the other side, and I did promise you both sides, an epidemiologist at the University of Minnesota points out that FoodNet was never actually designed to detect outbreaks in the first place, and that many multi-state outbreaks hit states outside the FoodNet system entirely. So it's fair to say that cuts have likely made this harder to solve, but it's hard to say they caused it. And I think the bottom line on that one is that we're trying to solve a nationwide outbreak with fewer people and less required tracking than we had a year ago. So you can decide for yourself how much that bothers you and who may be to blame. Now, when I think our institutions can't figure out what's happening, an information vacuum will fill up with theories. So I want to talk about why that happens, because I think it's more revealing than any single theory itself, and you've probably seen them. I'm hearing them all the time now. That powerful billionaires are somehow behind it, while one of them has quietly become the largest private owner of farmland in America, holding approximately 275,000 acres. Others are suggesting that a foreign enemy of the U.S. may have engineered it to create chaos in our food supply, because unlike bacterial pathogens like E. coli or Salmonella, Cyclospora cannot easily be traced back and has a long 2-week incubation period, ensuring that affected individuals cannot even remember what they ate that long ago. So it can effectively paralyze public health investigations and response. Some geopolitical theorists are arguing these exact characteristics make Cyclospora perfect for that. My take so far is I can't find credible evidence for any of these, but I also do not dismiss people for asking. More importantly, I understand the reason these ideas are spreading. When a real parasite is making thousands of people sick, and the agency that you fund with your taxes is reporting less cases nationally than one state alone is reporting, and the tracking system was quietly dismantled a year ago. Of course, trust in our institution is collapsing, and of course, people start assuming the worst. So I don't think these theories are the problem here, but they're a symptom of a genuine collapse of faith in the institutions that are supposed to serve and protect us. I think we need to demand answers. Where's the traceback data? Which distributor commingled the produce? Was the irrigation water tested? You know, those are real questions that could protect your family. One more interesting thing from the comments, quickly, because it has a hidden lesson. A lot of food service workers and shoppers have reported in recent weeks opening bagged greens that reek of something like rubbing alcohol or harsh chemicals, and they've wondered if distributors are over-dousing the produce with sanitizers to get around this or hide the spoilage. I can't confirm what any given facility does, but the worst part is, even if they are, those chemical washes do not kill Cyclospora anyway. Neither does the hand sanitizer in your car. This parasite is famously resistant to alcohols and chlorine, so chemical smell might mask the produce, but it does nothing to the parasite riding on it. The only thing that does work is heat. So can't repeat this enough. Cook all your food. And this was the single most asked question in the comments, so let's settle it here. And there's a warning also inside all this. People saw that the recommended treatment for Cyclospora is a drug called TMP-SMX. You may know as Bactrim, and people said, wait, that's an antibiotic. Antibiotics are bacteria. This is a parasite. So how's that going to work? Great question, and I think the answer is really interesting here. The neat little boxes, we put drugs in antibiotic, antiparasitic. They describe what a drug is most commonly used for, but not a hard biological wall of how the drug actually works. Bactrim works by starving cells of folate, something that this particular parasite needs to reproduce. So a drug we think as an antibiotic happens to be a proven and effective treatment for this specific parasite. But I also think there's a trap here because sometimes people hear the word parasite, and a lot of the online chatter will jump to the antiparasitic drugs that have gotten really popular in recent years. Ivermectin, mebendazole, and even fenbendazole. And I understand the appeal of self-reliance and many of these alternative remedies. But to caveat, those drugs are designed for deworming, and that's for a completely different category of parasite. Cyclospora is not a worm, but a microscopic single-celled organism, and the deworming drugs are not necessarily proven treatments for it. So, if a sick, dehydrated older adult grabs a dewormer off the internet instead of getting a drug that actually works, they may lose a week that they don't have the luxury of losing, while their real illness could drain them and dehydrate them. So I always think the safe move here is ask your doctor if you or someone you care for has had diarrhea that won't quit after a few days. Talk to your doctor. Say the word Cyclospora out loud. Ask them to test for it specifically because a standard stool test can miss it. Mention any sulfa allergy since the frontline drug is a sulfa, and let either the doctor or the pharmacist give you suggestions. And of course, on top of that, do your own research. I think there are side effects to everything. From those medications, there's side effects. From alternative treatments, there's side effects. And not doing anything at all. There's also risk, so you need to think for yourself, which risk are you the most comfortable with taking? I also want to end somewhere here, hopeful, because a lot of you are landing a good place, and I think this story really deserves the airtime. In all this fear, I notice that a real movement is growing around our country. People are deciding to take back a little control over their own food. Many of you are growing food in your own backyards or outdoor gardens. Some are setting up small indoor hydroponic gardens. You know, those are countertop systems that grow romaine, basil, cilantro in clean water. You know it's great because there's no multinational big food giant there, no big packing plant, no 1,000-mile supply chain, foreign countries. I absolutely love the spirit of this. I think every move we can make towards a little bit of self-reliance can totally change how life feels, as it's one thing that you can fully control. But for many of you who have to buy things at the grocery store and can't grow stuff yourself, just cook it thoroughly for now. Roasted cabbage, carrots, broccoli, Brussels sprouts. Summer berries can be cooked down into a compote, even a pie, or a warm oatmeal. A myth I'll debunk again and again. Freezing does not kill this parasite. A lot of folks assumed freezing was a safe zone. The lab work says it arrives freezing just fine. Only heat to about 158 degrees can destroy completely. So freeze things for convenience if you like, but do not think you're freezing it for safety. Heat is only safety. I think none of this means that you need to live in fear of food. Even the scientists sounding the alarm say they haven't stopped eating vegetables. This just means be the informed one. Cook things for now. Keep your loved ones safe. I think we have one of the largest parasite outbreaks in modern American memory. No confirmed source yet. A national account that is completely behind the curve, and a real scientific fight over whether it's in the lettuce or it's in the water, with a twist that it may be in both. A tracking system that got cut before we needed it the most, and a very human parasite that traces back every time to a failure of sanitation somewhere in a food supply chain that's grown too big and too far away for us to even see. But I don't want you to walk away feeling powerless, because you're not. I think you now know more than most people ever hear in the news. You know that washing and chlorine don't kill it, only heat does. You should be buying whole heads of lettuce and ditch the outer leaves. You'll know that freezing is a myth and cooking is the only shield. You know the danger of grabbing the wrong pill and the one word Cyclospora. At the doctor, office, that I'll get your loved one tested and treated fast. You even know why the conspiracy theories are spreading online and what can actually protect you and your loved ones. This knowledge only works if it travels across our communities. So here's my ask, and the whole reason that this channel even exists. Send this to 3 people: the friend who still buys bag salad, a friend going through chemo whose body can't take a hit right now, and the parent or grandparent who's at risk simply due to their age. 3 people can be protected in the next few minutes because you spend 10 seconds sharing. I think even if our institutions are failing, we can still help each other stay safe by building a community. And drop your state in the comments, and please tell me if you're seeing this where you live. The last video, your comments basically built a real-time guidebook that the news didn't have, and everyone was reading and learning from it. Let's do it again. Please subscribe, because this investigation is moving fast, and the moment that we know the real source, I'll bring it straight to you, probably before the news does. Let's take care of each other. I'm Dr. Thomas, and I'll see you in the next one.